we've got this section of carbohydrates continued, but this part is the grain products. So grain products are obviously different to actual raw grains in that the grain products have taken the raw grain, processed it in some way, and then utilized it to make something else. For example, if you break down the raw grain of rice and a dried piece of rice and you grind it down to a flour, then the rice flour can be used to make bread, bread rolls, pizza, pasta, cereals, pastries and cakes, etc. So essentially what happens with this process of breaking down the grain is that it's almost a bit like it's been pre-digested for the body. So in some regards, that's really good. So when you consume a grain product, then it's a little bit easier for your digestive processes to further break it down and absorb it. But in some regards, that can actually be a little bit of an issue. For instance, there's minimal breakdown of the carbohydrate to do, and so therefore it's faster absorbed and faster spikes the blood sugar levels. Now, obviously, this is an advantage if you're wanting to spike blood sugar levels, for instance, in athletes or in sports, and you're wanting to make sure the carbs are there ready and available. But in other conditions, such as blood sugar level issues where you've got insulin resistance or diabetes, it's obviously not what you want to be doing. So, hence why what we've done here is just presenting grain products as potentially being a problem in a lot of conditions. It doesn't mean you can't eat them, but you just need to have an understanding of how they may affect your body and therefore how it's best to consume them if you are going to consume them. So again, what we have is a table here below, which has quality grain or quality grain products that are generally supportive, and then you have the other grain products on the other side. So with the other grain products, it's marked in their bread and bread rolls, pizza bases made from flours. Now, what's interesting is that you can actually these days get amazing recipes for bread and bread rolls and pizza bases that are not made from the flours, but are actually made from the whole grain or from nut meals, for instance. So nut meal is a little bit different, like almond meal. It's sometimes called almond flour. Or you can make them out of cauliflower, as a pizza base, or polenta as a pizza base. So there's a lot of different options we can these days use to make similar things to pizzas and breads. Similar to the breads, you can find also the paleo style bread loaves. What that simply means is they've used almond meal as a base for the bread loaf, which means that when your body breaks it down, it doesn't impact on your blood sugar levels as strongly, and therefore it releases the nutrients into your body at a slower rate and hence impacts less on a spike of blood sugar level. So that's essentially the difference there between the breads and the sort of made out of whole like flours. And be careful as well, because you can have whole flour breads, but that still uses the flour, which in essence has a similar effect on your body. So as you can see on the left-hand side with quality grain products that are more supportive, it's breads made with whole grains that remain whole in the cooking process. We've got some amazing recipes on our website, www.alchemist.com.au, and there's some things with, like your chia and quinoa loaf or your egg breads. So there's a whole bunch of things you can look at there. So the same story goes with crackers. So a lot of crackers are made out of refined carbohydrates like this. And so, same thing with wraps as well. And so these ones can spike some people's blood sugar levels. So if you're going for crackers, if you can make them out of the whole seed or not, or the whole seed itself is better. Usually seeds are the best one for crackers. There's a brand called Kit's crackers that are fantastic. And then you can make, your wraps and things like that, things like your egg wraps. Again, check our recipe section for that. So there's alternatives that are much, much better to be able to work with than your actual ones made from the grain flour itself. Same thing when you go for porridge as well. So you're better off going for your buckwheat porridge, your quinoa porridge that are made from the actual grains and heated up. You can use a rice cooker to make that, and that makes fantastic porridge, or on the stovetop, but start from the actual raw ingredients. When you go for things like your cereals, puffed rice, puffed corn, puffed quinoa, puffed amaranth, they're already broken down. It's very, very refined. So when you actually go to digest that, it's easier to digest, of course, and break down and then absorb. But it's what we sometimes call as sort of filler foods, where they don't contain a huge amount of nutrients in those compared to a lot of other foods. and hence some of these can be quite minimal in nutritious benefit to the body. Of course, they've got calories and energy, and if that's what you're after, then obviously that's an option to work with. But when we're coming to looking at how to support the body best in terms of blood sugar levels, they're also ones that tend to spike the blood sugar levels quite quickly. Similarly with the pasta as well, pasta is actually made from flour. And same with your pastries and cakes made from flour too. And in addition, your pastries and cakes also have the sugar and sweeteners added to it. So if we go back to the left-hand side here, there's an option for noodles here. So obviously pasta made from flour is going to spike your blood sugar levels. There are pastas that are made from slightly different ingredients. So there's what's called seaweed noodles, which are actually quite beautiful in their nutrient content because they're quite rich in nutrients. They are a little bit, you have to get used to using them and knowing how to cook with them. Same with the konjac glucomannan noodles. They're actually supportive for and recommended for people who have diabetes or blood sugar level issues because they don't tend to spike the sugar levels much. But what's interesting, you've also got a whole series of spaghettis and fettuccinis and pastas that are available these days that are made from mung bean and black bean and other sort of beans and chickpeas and that kind of stuff. So what's great about them is they're actually quite high in protein content, so they tend not to spike blood sugar levels as much. They are obviously made from the black bean, which is then dried and turned into flour, which is then made into the spaghetti, for instance. So it's still made from the flour, but the constituent of the flour has less ingredients to spike blood sugar levels. Hence, it's a little bit more supportive for the body from that perspective. And similarly, when you're dealing with pastries and cakes, there's a whole range of pastries and cakes you can make with nut meals and egg predominantly. So they're high protein content and using minimal sweeteners or sweeteners that are a little bit less inclined to spike blood sugar levels. So again, have a look on our website. We've got lots of options there to look at. We want to try to minimize the spikes in blood sugar level. Sugar in the body leads to acidity and inflammation, and obviously in terms of inflammation, it can lead to a whole range of complications or contribute to a whole range of complications and problems that people have. And that wraps it up for this section. So we're going to have a look at the next section of carbohydrates.